I'd like to welcome you all. Good evening and welcome to our pre-construction meeting for the Stevens Creek Evelyn Avenue Fish Passage Improvement Project. That's a mouthful. Valley Water staff is going to present a little bit of information about what to expect during construction and before construction. This meeting is being recorded for anyone who couldn't participate or who wants to view it later or just watch it over and over. The link to the video will be available on the project webpage and the Valley Water YouTube channel in just a few hours after the meeting usually. For our online audience, please use the Q&A box at the bottom of your screen instead of the chat to ask questions or to raise your hand, your virtual hand, because we can't see your regular hand, to speak. Staff will respond to your questions at the end of the presentation. And we want to acknowledge two of our directors from our Valley Water board that are with us tonight. Online, we have Vice Chair Richard Santos, who's joining us. Good evening, Director Santos.
Hi,
we also have with us in the room, the Mayor of Mountain View, Ellen Kamei, with us tonight. Good to see you. And now I'd like to introduce our chair of our board, Tony Estremera, who's also joining us virtually. He represents District 6 on the Valley Water Board. He began his tenure in 1996 as an appointee for District 6 and has been appointed or elected to represent that area on the board ever since. He's an attorney and has played a leadership role in the development of the Silicon Valley Advanced Water Purification Center and representing Valley Water statewide on numerous water supply and planning organizations. Please welcome our chair, Tony Estremera, who will say a few words.
Thank you, Mike. I'm glad to be with everyone virtually tonight and receive the latest information about this wonderful project. You know, Stevens Creek is more than a waterway, as you all know. It's a lifeline for wildlife and a cherished resource for our community. But in Mountain View, the stretch of creek between the Evelyn Avenue and Central Expressway bridges has long been hindered by barriers that block fish from migrating to their upstream spawning habitats. By connecting Stevens Creek's natural pathways, this project will support Central California coast steelhead fish migration, restore ecological balance, and protect the vital community resource. I hope you enjoyed this presentation, and I encourage you your feedback and welcome your questions and concerns. Thank you, and I'll turn the meeting back to Valley Water staff.
Thank you, Chair Estremera. And I think I forgot to introduce myself. My name is Mike Potter, and I work in the Office of Communications here, and I lead our community outreach team. For today's presentation, Dennis Ruttenberg is an associate engineer, and he will provide a project overview and potential construction impacts for this project. And we have a number of other staff here who can answer more technical questions or biological questions as well. So put on your thinking caps for those of you watching at home or those in the room. And Dennis, come on up. Just as a quick reminder to our Zoom audience, the Q&A box for your questions or raise your virtual hand and we'll unmute you so you can ask your question after the presentation. Take it away, Dennis.
All righty. Thank you, Mike, and thank you, Chair Estremera, and thank you for joining us, Director Santos. Welcome to this presentation. Thank you for the community for coming as well. This is a presentation on the Stevens Creek Evelyn Fish Passage project. I'm Dennis Ruttenberg. I'm an associate engineer at Valley Water in the Watersheds Division. I'm the project manager and the designer of the project, and I'll be presenting an overview of the design, the planned construction, and potential public impacts from the project. There we go. I've mastered the thing. Here's an agenda for the presentation. First, I'll provide an overview of the project, indicate the goal of the project. Next, I will talk about the project schedule. And then after that, I'll talk about project elements. And then finally discuss the potential public impacts from the project to the community, as it's going to be built over the next 2 years. Here's an overview of the project location and the construction access and staging. What the staging is actually where the equipment's going to be stored, where materials are going to be stored and maintained. I'll be presenting this staging and access in more detail later, but here's just generally an overview of the extent of the project. This shows a general location in the city of Mountain View. The graphic on the right shows a magnified view of the project reach, the location, and some of the specifics along Stevens Creek. You can see some orange double dashed lines. Those indicate access. The project limit extends from just south of Evelyn Avenue to Central Avenue to the north. You can see a solid black line on the graphic on the right. That is the actual location of the grading and in-channel work. Basically extends from upstream of Evelyn to just downstream of Central Expressway. It's about a 650-foot reach of project. The project actually crosses under 5 significant bridges. It crosses under Evelyn Avenue. It crosses under the Caltrain tracks, the VTA tracks, and Central Expressway East and West. Within this project reach of Stevens Creek is a deeply eroded creek with very steep banks. The creek is actually located or vertically located 15 to 20 feet below the adjacent grade, where the bike trail is. This makes access pretty challenging for heavy equipment. So we needed to determine some feasible access points to the creek. We walked the full reach of the creek and determined the best locations, which are shown on this graphic here, identified as 1, 2, and 3. The goals of the access were to minimize the public impacts to the creek, and also to ensure public safety. Access to the project site for the contractor to bring necessary equipment, labor, and materials will be from the city as shown here, these various locations. I'm having a Steve Jobs moment here.
Very good.
Okay. I should point it at you maybe. Okay, thank you. That's an obscure reference, by the way. Okay, project goal. So the goal of the project is to restore this section of Stevens Creek and create better access for Central California Coast steelhead. The upper right image on this graphic shows a photo or rendering of Central California Coast steelhead. They have breeding grounds, or what biologists call reds, upstream of the project. These steelhead are currently considered a threatened species by federal fishery agencies, and it's a priority for restoration on Stevens Creek. This particular reach of Stevens Creek is considered a barrier to upstream passage by the same fishery agencies. The proposed solution that we have here is to put in a nature-like channel, otherwise called a roughen channel, composed of large boulders, and we're also going to include a fish habitat structure as part of the project. Habitat structure is constructed of large redwood trees that were downed and are going to be placed in the creek. Valley Water used guidance, standard guidance from the agencies, manuals to carefully design these features. We also use advanced hydraulic modeling techniques. In the image on the left, you can see the current condition of the project site. In this project, you can see some exposed steel, some remnant concrete on that. The remnant features will be modified to help stabilize the channel. This project will be installing large boulders and native redwood trees that were naturally salvaged to simulate a natural creek condition and to create habitat for fish. The image on the right shows approximately what the construction process looks like. This is from another project But basically you see the excavator, the large boulders, and work in progress in a confined or a deeply downcut creek. So we'll discuss this in more detail later. You can see the size of the excavator that's needed because it has to lift, manipulate, and place very large 1 foot to 4 foot boulders, or 1 ton to 3 ton boulders. Here's a view of the project schedule. So we're on track to start construction this summer, most likely early August, possibly mid-August. Valley Water has been working on design since 2022, as you see in blue on this graphic. 10 contractors were pre-qualified for this specialized work. As you can see in purple on the lower left, that was completed in February 2025. The design work was completed in April 2025. At that point, we went to public bid and we received bids from the pre-qualified contractors. This resulted in the award of the construction contract to the Granite Rock Company, as you see there in orange. That occurred in June. Actually, our notice to proceed was literally a couple days ago. So the actual start of construction depends on the approval of the contractor's detailed work, their plan, the permits they need to get from the city. There's final permits they need to get from the city, the county, Caltrain, and you can see that indicated in the green bar on this graphic. Construction is planned over 2 summers. It's a large project. So over the summers of 2025 and 2026, we're planning construction to comply with the regulatory permits. We're only allowed to be in the creek from June 15th to October 15th of each year. And also that is when the creek is dry. It's typically dry during the summer. So we're avoiding the rainy season. All materials and equipment, temporary ramps, facilities have to be out of the creek right on October 15th. Once construction is complete in 2026, the contractor will move all equipment and materials from the site, restore the creek, restore the access locations, and the staging areas to pre-project conditions. After 2026, when the project is completed, the Valley Water staff will evaluate the creek after the winter flows and determine if we need to do any kind of follow-up maintenance. So if there were any adjustments to the creek or any concerns about fish passage as a result of the winter flows, in 2027, you can see another yellow bar there for maintenance, potential maintenance, to be determined after that winter. So what does the project include? As I described previously, this is a nature-like or roughened channel structure. It's composed of large boulders, a large root wad structure, or root wad being a large tree with the roots intact that gets placed in a channel for habitat. There's 4 major elements of the project. As I mentioned, there's a 650-foot long nature-like channel, a roughened channel, composed of boulders, cobbles, and gravel. An example is shown in that upper left-hand image from a different site. That's generally what it should look like. To build this channel, we're going to have to bring in 7,000 tons of large boulders and rock and truck those into the site by way of the city streets. The rock is going to be carefully placed with an excavator, like I showed in that other image. The idea is to recreate something that simulates a natural stream bed. The shape of the channel was designed to create pathways for juvenile and adult fish, steelhead, to pass. The rocks were also designed to be stable in large flood flows, big flood events. So the concern about the whole project washing out in a flood should be covered by virtue of the analysis that we did, the design we did to provide large rock to be stable in major floods. Some of the excavated stream bed material will be salvaged and reused on site. As shown in the upper right-hand side of this image, there's a large slope failure just downstream of Evelyn, excuse me. It's on the west bank of the creek near MCC Castro Station, for those possibly familiar. The image shows a 15-foot tall vertical slope failure. It extends about 60 lineal feet along the creek. The project goes through here. So part of the project, we need to include a slope stabilization to build this nature-like channel. The rock is going to be installed up the slope to provide slope protection and slope stability. Above the rock, the slope will be further flattened and natural grass will be planted on that slope to last the winter and beyond during the rainy season. As shown in the lower left, this is an example of a fish habitat structure. This will be built from large redwood trees that are salvaged from another job site. This picture is an example, like I said, of what it will generally look like. The placement of the trees and root wads will provide resting spots for fish. They'll provide cover for fish from predators. It'll also provide shade on the water to keep the water cool. All these aspects being beneficial to steelhead and other fish. On the lower right-hand image, you can see the fourth element of the project. There's a boulder bypass weir that was built in 2015. This is upstream of Evelyn Avenue. The intention of this weir was to keep lower flows in the creek, and then in large storm events, it would overflow at higher water levels and divert water into that culvert you see in the background on the right. It's basically a flood relief culvert. It's a long culvert, provides protection from flooding in the main channel and otherwise. It maintains lower flows in the creek that are really important to both keep fish in the channel during lower flows, but also to keep sediment, moving sediment in the channel. If the sediment were to get out of the channel and into the flood culvert, it could potentially clog the culvert, and that was actually experienced in the past. On the right side of the image, you can see that culvert. It's a 10 foot wide by 8 foot wide underground concrete culvert. It begins at Evelyn Avenue and it ends on the other side of Central Expressway. It provides flood relief to 5 major bridges in the reach, as I mentioned. You can see a red arrow there that highlights the location of the boulder weir. It's built with what we're estimating as 3-ton boulders. Over time, it's degraded and no longer functions as originally designed to keep low flows in the creek. It basically leaks. So we have to go back and rebuild this. The rebuild is actually going to reuse the existing rocks on the site, bring in new rocks as we need to. All these rocks being generally about a 3-ton or a 4-foot diameter size. And basically rebuild it to both keep the fish in the creek and keep the sediment in the creek. So here's a highlight of the channel design. This is a nature-like channel. The upper slide shows a rendered design cross-section with a 25-foot wide, 4-foot deep nature-like channel. It's going to be built from natural rock. The image on the upper right shows where the design is going to be built. It's located within existing concrete in the creek that is scoured and exposed. You can see the exposed steel in the creek that is also exposed. Where needed, the remnant concrete will be pulled out of the creek. The steel that you see in that image will be modified. And the end result will be a natural channel appearance and a natural channel function. On the image on the bottom, you can see a design cross section at the slope failure location, but also at the location of a tree. This well, go back. So yeah, so this is where trees need to be protected. Important to note that arborists will be involved during construction. The arborist will be providing guidance, both how to protect the tree, but also the roots of the tree during construction. So this is a good example of the design element of how to place rock next to a tree. It's actually a 60-inch diameter coast live oak. This tree is actually located about, I think about 60 feet downstream of the Evelyn Bridge or north of the Evelyn Bridge. This is where I tell myself, next slide, please. Fish habitat structure. So here's an image of the design for the fish habitat structure. There's a lot of engineering stuff here. But the take home is we're trying to simulate a condition where a tree would naturally fall in the creek and provide habitat to fish in the creek. The trees that will be there will be 15-foot long redwood logs with root structures intact. There's what we call a footer log, a log that connects everything together. That's at the bottom. The idea of the structure is it's as if a tree would fall in the creek and the fish can find a safe place to rest, a safe place to hide from predators. Basically simulate that. In the bottom center of the image, if you can see it, there's a dark vertical line. That's a mechanical anchor that holds the fish habitat structure to the stream bed. This anchor is going to be drilled into the stream bed, and the anchor will be attached to the habitat structure with rust-proof hardware, durable rust-proof hardware. So that the intention is that this structure is not going to go anywhere. So public impact. I'm going to talk a little more, as I indicated, I'm going to talk a little more in detail about public impacts of access and staging. This is a graphic, again, showing an overview of locations of access and staging for the project. In the bottom center of the project, you can see staging area number 1. This is the contractor's primary access point. It's in a gravel lot just off of Evelyn Avenue. It's owned by the city. It's shaded by that orange trapezoid there, again, in the lower center part of the image. At the top of the image, you can see a second access point called staging area number 2. That is actually located at the end of Central Avenue, not Central Expressway, Central Avenue. It's identified with that L-shaped orange polygon there. The third optional access point is an existing ramp in the creek. It's located about 400 feet south of Evelyn Avenue. It's off of the Stevens Creek Trail, an important trail. It's shown as a double dashed orange line there on the graphic, on the bottom of the graphic. And also note in the graphic, there's something that says 800 feet access along the creek bed only. This basically connects the site. So that's a location where creek bed access only will occur. Again, because the creek is so deeply cut into the land. Prior to mobilization, this is important, the contractor is required to provide a traffic control plan. This traffic control plan is subject to approval from Valley Water, the city of Mountain View, the county of Santa Clara. So they can't really begin work until they have an approved plan. So kind of getting down into more detail about each specific area. These are images from access and staging area, access and staging area 1, the city lot. At this location, the contractor will be storing equipment, storing materials. A temporary access will be built to the creek at this location. Traffic on Evelyn Avenue will be intermittently impacted as trucks turn in and out of the staging area. The contractor will be required to have flaggers along Evelyn Avenue for safe flow of traffic. The location of the driveway, the driveway to the staging area, you can see where that blue rectangle is on the image on the right. It's basically a curb cut off of Evelyn. And then moving on to staging area 2, off of Central Ave. Here's a couple images of staging area 2. This location was chosen as the next and best access point north of the project to access the construction site. On the image on the right, you can see that the contractor would access the creek from Central Ave. A temporary ramp will be cleared down to the creek, and you can see that rectangular blue area. That's generally where the ramp would be located. To put a ramp there, the wooden fence would need to be removed temporarily. It will be replaced at the end of the project. At the end of the street, we've indicated a day-only parking area for the contractor and team for 3 cars. The contractor will not be allowed to block driveways with equipment or materials, but there is potential for some temporary traffic control to facilitate access to equipment. Also note in that image, you can see a PG&E pole and riser at the end of Central Ave. That will be protected in place, important utility, and probably most important to the community. This is the location of the Stevens Creek Trailhead off of Central Avenue, so that will be open at all times. The contractor will not be allowed to close that trailhead during construction at any point, and protect the public at that point as well. As shown in the image on the left, the contractor will need to create a ramp down to the creek. You can see that kind of arc of blue sweeping down. On the right-hand side is Central Avenue. If you move from right to left, that connects to staging area 2, which is actually, it's located next to the creek on a flat spot. Some light clearing of vegetation will be required to make that staging area happen. Temporary staging area. This staging area would be used for staging of materials like large rock and parking of equipment. Equipment cannot stay in the creek overnight. It has to be pulled out of the creek and put in a safe location out of the creek every night. So this would effectively, that's an example of how this would effectively function. Okay, let's see. Yeah, so light clearing of vegetation might be required or will be required. If you look in the middle of the image, there's a point called the image on the left. You see creek access. So this indicates the path the contractor would travel to go from staging area 2 to Central Expressway, where the work will occur. Along this access route, the 800-foot access route, as I showed another image, they'd be driving equipment, carrying materials up and down the creek bed. Good. Okay, so segue, yeah, the creek access. This basically shows an image of what the creek access looks like right now. As you can see in the image, there are some dead and overhanging trees. These trees will need to be cleared for equipment to pass. The trees that will be removed will only be approved, that the trees that will be removed have to be approved by Valley Water and the city, and only as needed for temporary access and staging. No access will be allowed on the creek banks, where it's creek access only. All clearing and access shall be within regulatory permit requirements. And especially important, no native trees greater than 12 inches, not 12 feet. Make note, the graphic says 12 feet. No native trees greater than 12 inches in diameter will be allowed to be removed. Noise and vibrations will be monitored throughout the project and be kept at low levels. The actual equipment will be operating down in the creek, so perhaps the fact that they're recessed in the creek might dampen the noise a little bit, to be determined, but nevertheless, they need to be compliant with low noise and vibration requirements. Axis 3, optional axis 3. These images show what access along the creek bed. Oh, excuse me. The contractor will have optional access point along Stevens Creek, along the Stevens Creek Trail, south of Evelyn. If they so desire, they have to, of course, submit a plan to do so. Valley Water certainly recognizes this trail and this bridge as an essential path, especially the bridge as a connecting point to various parts of the city of Mountain View. It crosses over some major streets, it crosses over some railroad tracks. So we definitely recognize it as an important trail. To limit the impact of the trail for commuters and recreational users, we've closely coordinated with the city for short-term and optional use of the trail for access. The need to use the Stevens Creek Trail actually is driven by the presence of an existing ramp. That ramp is located about 400 feet south of Evelyn Ave. You can see it on this graphic in blue, identified as access ramp 3. Use of this ramp, we anticipate, will most likely expedite construction time and provide pretty good access to the southern portion of the project. Based on communications with the city, the use of the trail is subject to numerous conditions. Temporary access only for short durations, multi-hour during the day. No use of the trail during commuter hours or after hours. The contractor will also need an approved traffic control plan for use of the trail, approved by the city and Valley Water. Traffic flaggers will be required. Trail closures need to be, trail closures need to be planned ahead of time with the city approval and with advanced public notice. People need to know what's happening on the trail. It's a very valued resource. The trail also shall be maintained in a good condition and also shall be repaired to the satisfaction of the city once work is complete. Here's another image of the trail. The image on the left shows the bridge and the trail that would be used by the contractor, hatched in blue here. You can see the stairs that go up to the bridge that cross up and over Evelyn Avenue on the left-hand side of the left image. The image in the middle shows what the access point looks like from Evelyn Avenue. There, you can see bollards or these posts, removable posts, and you can see little fences, which are also removable. So this could potentially be the access point where the contractor would temporarily take out the posts and the safety measures to allow trucks to go through and then put them back when they're done. You can see that area in white there, that's actually a driveway that goes up to the path from Evelyn Avenue, right in the center image in the bottom there. So basically, yeah, the contractor would have to have, again, traffic control to access this site. The image on the right shows the existing access ramp down at the creek. I know it's not the greatest photo, but basically that is the ramp that the contractor would use to access the creek, and the Valley Water staff consider this in pretty good condition. It would most likely expedite construction time. So, in summary, after this word salad, here's a summary of impacts that we think are part of the project. Most likely, you're going to see a lot of traffic control on the city streets, depending on the contractor's submittals and approved submittals. There'll be some dust control related to construction. Whenever you dig, you're going to disturb the ground, you're going to generate dust. We have requirements for the contractor not to create dust. There may be temporary and limited closure of the Stevens Creek Trail. There will be noise and vibrations, all within required low levels. And then work hours will be 7:30 a.m. to 4 p.m. Monday through Friday, according to city requirements. There will be, if approved by the city, contractor day only parking at Central Avenue. We also think that this will be an important aspect and not to impact the public. And there will be vegetation trimming and removal of vegetation minimized as part of the project. So with that, thank you to the city of Mountain View for providing the space for this meeting and for being here. Thank you to the project team, and also thank you to the community for showing up today. With that, questions?
Thank you for that presentation, Dennis. And this would be a great time for you to think about your questions and put them in the Q&A box. But before we go to that, I want to make sure to recognize and welcome Director Rebecca Eisenberg, who has joined us for this meeting as well.
Thanks. I represent you guys, so you can come to me. And I actually promised a few of my constituents where I live in Palo Alto that I would ask a couple questions on their behalf too, but I can wait till the people who showed up.
Perfect. Excellent. And with that, we'll go to the questions. Any questions in the room? Yes, sir. And so microphones are in the ceiling, so you just speak up and it'll.
Okay,
I'm assured that they'll hear you.
I have a couple of questions. One is, in the winter, next winter, between the 2 summers of construction, what's being done to minimize impacts on fish passage? That's question number 1.
Well, the project's going to be phased because of the large size of the project. Anything they build will be built to a standard to provide fish passage. The remaining unbuilt section of project, that will be completed the following year, will eventually provide fish passage. So it'll be partially there.
And the transition between those 2 parts won't add any additional barriers, drop-offs, or that sort of.
As far as we know, it'll reflect existing conditions. The presence of the project, we don't think will exacerbate any kind of passage conditions, but the pre-project condition of ineffective passage will still be there until the project's in place.
Okay, so I think as he pointed out, it would be important to have a requirement on the contractor that fish passage is not worse during that intermission between the 2 summers than it was before the project started.
Yeah, it's implicit, I think, with the design specifically, we're gonna fade into provide more detail. We're planning to build the project upstream of the train tracks to the upstream limit. Make that a requirement of the contractor. So that has to be complete. They can't disturb any other ground. And whatever they disturb, they have to complete. They're not going to leave any open-ended construction.
Okay, one more question, if I may, and that is, you mentioned that grass would be planted where there was a bank slide, that it would be flattened and grass would be planted at the top.
Yeah,
I hope that's native plants to be planted at the top, but we shouldn't be planting non-native plants there.
absolutely. Yeah, the contract documents and requirements indicate native grass seed.
Okay, great.
Yeah, I think you're talking about.
Part of our permits too, probably.
Yeah, definitely part of our permits and our permitting program. You can see it on this graphic on the lower right. See that angled? You can see the location of the rock. And then above the rock on the lower right image, where it says 2:1, 2:1, that's where native grass would be planted to stabilize that slope.
You see that? It's that little spot right there. Okay.
Okay, thank you.
I could use the laser pointer, but
No,
I don't even know how to use it.
nobody wants to get hurt.
Yeah.
Thank you. Great questions. And Carl, did you have something to add or are you here?
I was just gonna add, the other function of providing the grass on that slope is, over the winter time, to provide erosion protection of the soils. We don't want to add more, soil that can erode into the creek because that impacts.
Are you just gonna have like burlap or something
Yeah,
like that as
yeah,
well
we
to
put down like a
stabilize the
native,
soil?
natural coconut fiber, basically. So it kind of naturally decays over time, but it also provides stability
Well, it
as
gets-
the grass grows and establishes.
Right.
Yes, sir.
So I think this is the third time that Valley Water will be working on this section. I wonder if you have good understanding of what's gone wrong with the past
If you're not repeating.
times.
Yeah, I think, speaking to that, there are a lot of complexities. As I indicated, there's remnants of a 2015 project. You could actually see it in this image. So, yeah, they did a lot back then. They used the best modeling that they had, and I think they built a project to their best of knowledge at the time. We learned a lot from that, and we're coming back, and like I indicated, we're sizing the rock to be large enough to be stable in a flood event. What happened in 2017, January, February, washed out a lot of the rock. So we definitely learned a lot from that. I think it was, I don't know what, a 20 or more year event. But we're designing the rock to be stable in a 20-year being an event that could occur in 20 years. We're designing the rock to be stable in a bigger event. So we learned a lot from that. I'm not aware of the predecessor to the 2015 project, but
Yeah, I just remember there were some improvements in there prior to that, but I
yeah,
wasn't around when it was done. And so in the modeling, I mean, a 20-year event these days seems like it's happening every 5 years or so, but you know, the events are all getting bigger, the storms are flashier. You know, I don't know if the models have been adjusted to anticipate some of what we're up against.
yeah, we've worked closely with our hydraulics team, and we've used the flows in the creek that we think reflect climate change and the hydrology of the area. Again, it's a complex area, because creeks will come up and then water will come out of the creek upstream. So what's left in the creek will be what remains. So, but all that's been studied by our hydraulics team, and we're using the latest information to account for that as well. I don't know if you want to add.
I think part of the challenge in this kind of project is that designing for flood or keeping a creek like this that's very dynamic, stable, in addition to providing fish passage, don't necessarily kind of align. And so that is a big challenge in doing this kind of design. We're trying to do both because we know of the past. We've learned from the past. We've made some adjustments because of that, and I think that's really formed what you see today. We've learned about how deep the creek can scour, which means in a large event, what the creek velocities can do to moving materials, and so we've designed for that, for those potential impacts.
And then there's a lot of details with the design that account for these considerations, like fish passage versus stability. So I don't want to burden you with the nuances of
This
that.
presentation was almost an hour. Dennis knows a lot about this, but we condensed it for this, but it's a lot available on the website as well.
Yeah.
Or you can reach out to our community team as well if you have more detailed questions.
Okay.
Yeah, so a lot of the challenges that Dennis is talking about is trying to match those two, where you've got a mixture of fish can move upstream, and the creeks aren't flowing too fast and they have enough depth, but then also have to design for potential movement in these larger storm events. So it's quite a challenge.
Okay. And what's the low flow design level? It seems like with those big boulders, as the flow gets low, it just gets lost in the boulders and fish won't be able to get through until it gets up to a certain amount.
That is such a good question. Yeah, so part of the design is considering regulatory guidance documents on. You can't really seal a channel, but you can provide a channel in a very, very low flow, like a trickle, like 50 garden hoses. I don't know. I'm gonna say 1 CFS, 1 cubic feet per second. Yeah, we've done our
Usually
best.
keeps up at 6 or so.
Yeah.
as a minimum flow.
Yeah, so we've done our best to design the channel to try to keep the water flowing with some depth and low velocity so the fish can swim through at a very low flow. We've considered that.
Give somebody else a chance.
Well,
But we have,
at this time, I want to acknowledge that Gianna Escobar is the community liaison and she's here tonight. Raise your hand so that we can, so if you have questions, you can reach out to her first, and that way we will get a subject matter expert, dentist or one of our biologists or somebody to answer your follow-up questions. And then Gianna also is tracking our questions online. So Gianna, do we have one?
Yeah, we do. We have a few actually.
Great.
So the first one that came through is, how will you keep the boulders from trapping trash? By Moffett Boulevard, someone dumped several couches and cushions into Stevens Creek. Some of them have been there in the creek trapped for over a year.
well, we have no control over the trash going through. I can say that we're definitely going to be closely monitoring the project on an annual basis. Maybe a punt to our monitoring team.
We certainly have Access Valley Water, so we'd encourage you to go to our website and submit this as a debris in the creek and waterway. It's not always Valley Water's portion of the creek, but we will, the tool allows you to figure that out as well. But we'll get it to the folks that need to. If it's NASA, or I'm not sure exactly where on Moffett that is, but
I would say it's more of an ongoing maintenance and
Yeah.
operational than a design. There's really not much you can do from a design standpoint to mitigate that, but we do have knowledgeable staff that are aware of these conditions, and as Mike said, in between inspections and ongoing maintenance work out there, that there are a large amount of trash that are observed. We have ways that the public can notify us, and we'll be able to respond to those notifications in a timely manner.
and yeah, so that Gianna, you can send an email to Gianna, the community liaison, and but also our Access Valley Water tool. And I'm certain your elected representative wouldn't mind getting an email about this as well. I have just guessing.
I love email.
What I can say is that we will be cleaning up the debris and the garbage that are right now are a water quality concern during construction. After construction, as Dennis mentioned, we have like about a 1-year maintenance period where we can also continue to clean up any debris that are out there. But then following the construction work, once the contractor's out of the way, then it'll become an ongoing maintenance and operations type of
And just
work.
the volume of debris and garbage that's been removed from the creeks every year is several thousand tons per year. So that is just an ongoing operations challenge that we have, but let us know, send it to us, and we'll follow up.
So my next one, I have a few, and I have a few hands raised too. So the next one I have is this a flood protection project? Boulders may be better for flood protection, but fish generally need small to medium gravel for spawning.
Right, so as I indicated, we followed regulatory guidance, specifically California Department of Fish and Wildlife design guidance. We used high flows for stability, but we also provide a gradation of rock that provides a natural bed habitat for fish by virtue of the CDFW Department of Fish and Wildlife design. So yes, intuitively fish like smaller rock, but But also, yes, we follow design guidance from regulatory agencies and from our design experience, my 30 years, 25 years of design experience.
I think
I'll add to that. I'll add to that a little bit. The main part of the work is and that's the boulder bypass weir to make sure that that's working as it was originally intended and designed. And so we're going to improve that to make sure that water during high storm events is able to get diverted and flow over that weir and then into the bypass structure, which is that long culvert. And that's the main flood protection element of this project. As some of you may know, a lot of our flood protection issues happen at bridges because the water is a large amount of water is trying to shoot down into a smaller section of creek. And so that's where the water levels rise. And so that's the main purpose. And that is the one flood protection element of this project.
And depending on when you submitted your question, you may not have been to the part where they talk about putting the natural
Fish habitat.
rootwood installation,
Root
yeah,
line.
which provides safety for the fish. Yes, sir.
I think the questioner was concerned about spawning gravel. I think most of the fish spawning happens upstream of this. And so perhaps the agencies thought this area was not so important for spawning.
Yeah, we have our biologists in the room, and that is correct. This is a
He's nodding his
technically
head.
passage reach. Do you want to, Jeff or John, you want to speak to that? The goal as a part of the goal of the project. Yeah. We need to talk to the
Microphones in the ceiling.
The primary goal of this project is to provide passage so that steelhead can move from the lower reaches of the creek up to the higher reaches of the creek. So the goal of this is not so much to provide a spawning habitat within this reach, but more to allow the fish to access the higher quality spawning habitats that are above it. So the goal really is to provide a structure that can maintain that passage and needs to have that large rock to keep that structure stable, because that's really the primary goal in this. And that's in alignment with what the federal fisheries agencies have told us is the most important thing to be done in this stream.
That answer your question.
That help? Okay, good. Gianna, any others?
Yeah, so the next one is what monitoring will occur during and following construction?
Great question.
Well, yeah, Jeff can come back to you. So as I mentioned, the year following construction, it'll be closely evaluated to see if there's any like heavy construction or heavy efforts to like get it to the design standard. But after that, there'll be a monitoring program, which I guess I'll defer to Jeff for the specifics.
Sure. We have a 10-year-long annual monitoring program as part of this. Each year, monitoring will occur in both the winter during flow events and during the summer. That monitoring will include a qualitative observation of the function of the structure and system, an evaluation of whether at the time we're out there, we're able to see any fish use of the structure, as well as a component in which when we do receive a 10-year flow, we are going to have a geomorphological monitoring, so a more quantitative kind of in-depth monitoring to determine whether that 10-year flow affected the structure and whether any maintenance needs to be done on it to correct that. If we don't happen to receive a 10-year flow during that period, at the end of the 10 years, we will conduct that monitoring just to determine whether any of those lesser flows during that 10-year period have affected the structure. We're also conducting some general evaluations of stream health that we have guidance from some of our state regulatory partners along this reach as well during the process.
I have another one that I think, Jeff, will be for you. Is there a plan to do a fish census before and after?
There's not a plan to do a fish census per se before and after. We do have ongoing monitoring within the stream. So a separate unit within Valley Water conducts annual monitoring within the stream to get numbers of fish that are using this stream. As well as some general information about the kind of the population structure of those fish, but specifically tied to this project, we do not have a before and after census planned. That information will be, being collected by us as an organization, but we do not have a census tied to this project.
I have a few hands raised, so I'm gonna give Stephanie the mic. You can unmute yourself and go ahead and ask our experts in the room.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Stephanie Moreno. I'm speaking tonight in my capacity as Executive Director for the North Santa Clara Resource Conservation District. I have several questions. Some of them have been partially answered already from some of the questions you've already answered, but I'd like to echo some of the other speakers' thoughts that this feels more like a flood control project than a fish habitat project. From what I'm gathering, you are just trying to keep the fish from stopping here, rather than actually providing habitat for them to spawn or pause in their passage. I'd like to say that the words that you're using, simulate a natural creek, natural, not a natural stream function. Those words are not ones that we typically see used with a fish habitat project. So we are a little concerned. Just at first blush, we haven't been able to delve into this. I just found out about this tonight. I am very concerned about the concrete for the rocks, because as you know, that means that the bugs won't be able to use that section of creek. Bugs are what provide food for the fish. I also note that you're going to be taking down an unknown number of trees if necessary. Those trees provide shade, provide cooling temperatures for the water. So if a lot of them come down, it's actually reducing the habitat. If CDFW did not tag this as a spawning area, my question is that because it had already been eroded for that purpose, or it never has been used for spawning? That would be one question. The other is regarding the trees that you are trying to save. Are you going to actually save the trees or just delay their loss by putting in the structures to keep the roots from going? And if it's just a delay of loss, if it's possible to start planting some trees alongside to take their place when they do go, would be, I think, a good improvement to the project. And then again, through last question,
those two.
Just let her finish.
Okay. Well,
that last question about how many trees will be potentially taken down. I imagine you at least quantified the maximum number of trees that would have to be coming down under 12 inches. Is it possible to add mitigation in there to plant trees, to be ready to plant those trees as the others come down when the temporary access is removed to replant the trees? And one final thing, did regional board actually weigh in on this in addition to CDFW as far as what they would like to see for the stream function? Thank you very much. And again, I just want to say how much we appreciate that you are working on fish passage on Stevens Creek. The creek does flow through some of our watersheds, and we're very pleased that you're tackling this project. Thank you.
So many questions, but all good. Yeah, I guess I could start by, at the beginning you mentioned this feels like a flood control project rather than a fish habitat project or fish passage project. The design is driven to provide fish passage. We've performed advanced hydraulic modeling. We've consulted with the regulatory agencies as part of the design for required fish passage conditions. And I use the word nature-like channel. Granted it's, large rock, but it's also a gradation of rock. There's a gradation of rock, made it technical on you here, called engineered stream bed material. So again, we use Department of Fish and Wildlife guidance to design the varying sizes of rock to provide a natural stream bed and to provide something that looks like maybe not exactly like the image in the upper left here. Yeah, and I guess I could respond to trees.
How
The
about the concrete first?
okay, the concrete stuff.
Doesn't let bugs flourish and also adds a very toxic material to the area. Just
Well,
repeating the question.
We're not using concrete at all.
Oh, okay, because
We're not adding concrete, we're moving existing concrete.
Yeah, we're taking, so that,
is the presentation inaccurate or is it just,
well,
or is it just misleading?
No, what it shows there is that there's existing concrete that's in place. And that we will need to either place the rocks above the existing concrete or remove it in some locations. And so that's what the intent of that, those figures show.
yeah, you can see in that image in upper right, there's like a slab of concrete that's been undercut and scoured. That would be basically removed. So there's gonna be a net removal of concrete as part of the
So,
project.
so the confusion might be in that headline, and it's using the existing concrete,
Yeah.
not new concrete.
Thank you.
So they're not cementing rocks in like in the middle of a road. They're putting it on top of the existing concrete or removing the concrete.
But existing concrete also has those problems.
Correct, but it's already there, so we're not adding it. I mean,
But you're not removing it.
in some places, is that right?
Well, we're gonna leave concrete in certain
Okay.
places. We're only gonna remove it to the extent that we can build the fish passage channel. They cut it. The rock placement is basically 4 feet thick. So where the rock needs to be placed, the concrete would be removed to provide a natural finish to the channel. There, in addition, there'll be probably loose concrete that's just gonna be picked up and taken off the site and improve their condition.
The project goes through 5 separate bridges that are all built from concrete. Many of at least the parts that are in the creek provide erosion protection to protect those structures. And so the existing concrete that we'll be removing, we don't want to undermine those structures. We can remove a little bit here and there in order to build the project and meet the goals of it. But we can't remove, we don't want to undermine the structures themselves by removing concrete, because we also have to be sensitive to the owners of the bridges that we're doing the work underneath.
But maybe if they understood, like Ms. Marino said, that trees are the most effective tool to prevent erosion, that if the goal is preventing erosion, the solution is not concrete, it's trees. And so maybe they would welcome.
We have to abide by what they will allow us to do.
And are these public entities who own the bridges?
Yeah, they are.
Caltrain 101.
There's the county owns Central Expressway. Caltrain, the Joint Powers Board owns the Caltrain Railroad tracks. Evelyn Bridge is the city, right?
City Mountain View.
Yeah, so we had to work with 3 or 4 different entities itself just to get approval to work, near these bridges. And so.
And these were complying with the regulations to get our permits to do this for
Yeah.
all existing.
Yeah, so I can speak to the trees a little bit. Right now, I heard a lot of different questions about it, like, are these trees compromised and are they gonna fall in the creek, or, is this adequate effort to like protect the trees? And then I want to also speak to where the trees are gonna be removed. Actually, I would say the bulk of the trees that we anticipate to remove are not in the creek. They're not shading water. And they're not most likely providing canopy over the water. So it's simply to develop the access ramps and that staging area, which I showed earlier.
Be able to fit the equipment
Yeah,
in those
the
areas. Okay.
staging area too. And again, there'll be an arborist involved to approve any kind of action on site to protect the tree roots. I'm not an arborist, but I didn't see any other undercut banks or trees falling in the creek in the reach. There are
See 'em
some
all in
dead,
Palo Alto. In Palo Alto, they're there.
yeah, and then I showed an image that there's a dead overhanging tree. And it's pretty much, yeah,
5 feet in the air.
yeah,
right?
5 feet in the air. And then I also want to add that throughout this whole process, we've been working with a whole regulatory team as part of what we call the Stream Maintenance Permit Program. This project is permitted, is it maintenance? Maintenance,
Stream maintenance program.
not management, yeah.
That's right.
The Stream Maintenance Program. So that involves an active team of CDFW, NOAA, the federal agency, National Marine Fisheries Service. The regional board is involved in this, and I don't know if you're gonna speak to that. So we're within the guidance of the regulatory team, and they've been actively reviewing this project for multiple years. So I don't know if you want to talk about SMP.
Sure,
Yeah.
yeah, so as SMP is a stream maintenance program, it's a program that's used for maintenance of our streams throughout the county. It's kind of a way we plan for that maintenance, permit it. And this project is being done under that set of permits. We've been very strongly engaged with our regulatory agency partners, including the regional boards, CDFW, National Marine Fisheries Service, U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, Army Corps of Engineers. And they are approving of this project. They like this project. So they have had input throughout the project. In both the design aspects as well as the monitoring that we're doing for the project. Related to the trees, we are conducting mitigation for all tree removals, and we are mitigating both for the requirements of our state and federal agencies, and for the requirements of the city to replace the function of those trees in terms of the city's concerns. So we have actively engaged with the agencies and are providing compensatory mitigation for all of those vegetation removals that are happening. There was also a question related to spawning in this reach, that the general hydrology of this reach is such that it's not, even if you were to put appropriate size gravel in this reach, it's generally not going to be typically an appropriate place for spawning. Most of those areas are going to be upstream of this. So the purpose of this project really is to allow fish to be able to access those areas in which they spawn.
Thank you. Gianna, do we have another?
Yeah, we have another hand raised on Zoom. Christina, I'm gonna give you the opportunity to unmute.
Hello, this is Christina. Can you hear me?
Sound great. Thank you.
All right. Thanks so much for this meeting and the notices that you sent out. I live on Central Avenue, right near the Central Avenue entrance to the Stevens Creek Trail. So really glad to be informed about this project because it sounds like the construction will really affect our neighborhood, especially the 10-unit complex that I live in. So I have a number of construction related questions. And so if I'm asking too many, you can just cut me off and I can just wait my turn till later.
You can ask them, but
But-
just give us maybe one or two at a time, and then we'll answer them, and then we'll go to the next one. That way, we'll do our best.
Yeah, that sounds like a good plan. So the first one is just about parking on Central Avenue near the Stevens Creek Trail. I did see the slides about some of the parking being allocated for construction staff. Will that mean that parking will be restricted, or what could you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, we have worked with the city of Mountain View on this to for mainly two functions, allow the contractor some space to be able to park and not impact blocking driveways and not impacting the public that live there. And so we're gonna be allowing 3 parking spots there. We will have sort of signs that kind of delineate where the parking spots are and signs that show that there will be daily parking there. But they won't be blocking any driveways, won't be allowed to put any materials there. All the materials that'll be allowed for the access will be in that staging area 2 that we showed you, adjacent to the creek. So the main point of this is just be able to provide the contractor access to be able to construct those parts. And a big part of this, the plan that we put together is really to allow the contractor to, as quickly as possible, build the project and get out of your way. That's really the main part of it. The more limitations you put on the contractor, the longer it takes them to do the work and the more impacts to the public. So I just want to state that part of, you know, these various access locations, and it's a very challenging site for the contractor to access, to be able to work underneath bridges, going through city streets. And so really that's the main goal, is to try to do the work as quickly as possible and get out of the way.
Got it. I think we're all on board in terms of making it go as quickly as possible. So appreciate that response. And then I did hear about the 7,000 tons of rock that will need to be brought to the project area. What does that kind of translate into in terms of truck traffic on Central Ave? Or will you be using Central Ave to kind of transport all that material, or will you be using other access points?
Great question.
We don't exactly know until we get the contractor's plan, but we're anticipating that the materials will get distributed throughout all the access points that are available to the contractor. We do have sort of a phasing plan of the work. In this first summer, the work area will be just upstream of Evelyn Avenue and down to the Caltrain station. Because we are kind of starting late in the summer, we're only able to get a certain amount of work done. It's just not feasible to get in to start work in early August and do this much work in within that limited period of time, because we do have to be out of the creek by October 15th. And so there's a lot of work to be done in a short period of time. But the following year, we're able to start working by June 15th and then be out by October 15th. And so that's when we anticipate, you know, bulk of the work to be done within the other 2 access points. And the contractor is gonna sort of stage and use the access points to the most optimal way for them to complete the work.
And Christina, at the end of this, we're going to have a slide with the contact emails for Gianna and Dennis. I'm gonna
I can put it up right now.
suggest you take those down, and we'll get your information so that we can make sure to email you and all 10 of your residents. When we know trucks are coming, we're gonna give you advance notice. Sometimes it's, you know, our goal is to give you plenty of advance notice. Sometimes you know, it's a day or 2 or 3, but our goal is to inform you as far in advance as we can as the contractor moves forward with accessing the material and things like that.
Yeah, and as Carl said, we'll know more when the contractor gets more into the project and has a plan in front of us. But, the picture, a truck can haul maybe 10, 15 tons. Maybe probably not more at each trip. So, it's really up to them and per our approval, how this is gonna play out here.
And how heavy the trucks can be on the city streets.
Right, and with in compliance with any kind of requirements the city has, where they can go, et cetera, it's all. Yeah.
So quick clarification, staging area 1 that's there by Evelyn. Is there any access from there? Like, could you get rock from there down into the
Yes,
creek?
Exactly, yes.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Great.
there
Okay.
is, and in fact, we've used it before. Back in 2015, that was one of the access points, to be able to build a ramp that goes down into the creek.
Okay,
And so, yeah, we provide multiple, locations for the contractor to access it, mostly for expediency and efficiency.
okay.
Any do you have more questions, Christina?
I think you answered one of my last ones, which was contact info, but how are you planning to communicate during construction? Are you going to have meetings like this, or are you going to be sending out emails? Just wanted to know about what's your communication plan?
It'll be mainly through social media. We'll be providing notifications through Nextdoor, emails. We'll also have at a couple different locations throughout the project, we'll have a product sign. And on that product sign, as you can see in this last set, there'll be a QR code. So if you're walking by, you could just put your phone up to that QR code. You can get information on the website for the project, where it'll have updates. We'll be working with the city as well to put out any kind of notifications for construction impacts. And so they'll have their own channels of notifying the public, but we'll be working closely with them.
All right, great. Actually, just one last question. You mentioned you needed a whole bunch of permits. You mentioned the city, you mentioned the Caltrain, you mentioned the county, but you didn't mention VTA. Do you need to get a permit from VTA as well, or just
Yeah.
wondering about that?
So we're working with the Joint Powers Board. We had early discussions with Caltrain, and we did reach out to VTA. From our communications to VTA, they deferred to Caltrain and the Joint Powers Board to manage access under their bridge. And in fact, the project is not going to do any changes whatsoever to their bridge. All we need to do is pass under it. So we will put a little bit of gravel and such in the existing structure, but we're not gonna alter it whatsoever. All we need to do is really just pass through.
So the VTA, they operate their trains on the tracks over there. But it's managed by the Joint Powers Board. And so the main entity that we work with is the Peninsula Corridor Joint Powers Board, and that's who we have our permit with and other agreements for right of entry onto the property.
They have the heavier trains. So. I guess.
Well, there's also Caltrain there as well, but again, that's the operator of the railroad tracks, but I guess sort of the management agency is the Joint Powers Board.
Great. Thank you for all those answers to my questions. And I will be kind of following up with to the staff who are listed here about some more like specific issues related to where I live. But thanks again. I really appreciated all those answers.
Christine, we're so glad you're here. You're exactly who we were hoping would attend. And just so you know, I don't know when you joined, but your mayor, Ellen Kamei, was here earlier as well, and has shared your concerns with like those similar concerns with us, saying make sure people know what's going on. So.
And Christine, this is Rebecca, your representative. I'd be happy to come out and to where you live and see firsthand, what you're talking about. Often that's really helpful to me.
Great. Thanks, Rebecca. I really appreciate that.
It'd be my pleasure. And I'm really close by anyway. And that goes for anyone here on the line. I like making site visits because I like meeting people. So just let me know.
Excellent. Gianna, how are we looking on our Zoom attendees?
The queue is empty at
The
this
queue is
point.
empty. Okay. Any additional questions from the room?
And I got it. My constituents were really concerned about, or the people who contacted me were concerned about the things that Stephanie Marino really stated very articulately about using nature, the preference for nature-based solutions. Over time, science has really shown that nature-based solutions are more effective, less costly, create much better working conditions for the workers, and are far less disruptive to the neighborhoods and the communities. Imagine instead of hauling in a bunch of boulders, you're hauling in some, planting some trees. I mean, that's an activity that, you know, kids love to get involved in and watch, and it really brings communities together to engage in nature building, you know, so, you know, I continue to push for at all times the nature-based solutions. And since there does seem to be some flexibility in how you move forward, I hope that you all will continue to embrace that. I mean, it really turns what can be very disruptive and fumes and all that into something that's really happy and community building.
And to respond to that, Director Eisenberg, when you walk across Evelyn Avenue and look downstream, when the project's complete, you should be able to see the root wads in the creek, the habitat structure.
I think, you know, I think that's great. And most of all, I do want to offer my appreciation on behalf of everyone I know that there are going to be these passages. You know, it is so important that the fish be able to flow through, and clearly this work isn't easy. And so it's, you know, on behalf of the fish and all the people on the planet, it's, you know.
They're gonna get to swim past the gravel we put in 2015, which is out in the bay. And so hopefully this load will stay and provide them decades of protection.
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, they may prefer a natural bed,
For sure.
you know, but we're moving hopefully towards there.
The concrete troughs are no longer being built. So this is
Thank
Progress,
goodness,
right?
right?
So,
Something to be happy about.
progress.
Yeah.
Any other questions, Gianna? We're good? Okay, well, seeing that, I want to thank our presenters for your work and to all the attendees who participated. We really appreciate, and go to the project page and click sign up to be notified about things that happen. We will do regular emails about activities and give you as much notice as we can. And your input is important and informs us on how best to provide the community with a great project. As it moves forward, we'll be posting things on our webpage, on Nextdoor. We do stuff on social media, Facebook as well. And you can make sure to get to know Gianna Escobar, our neighborhood liaison, if you have additional questions beyond that. And thanks to our 3 board members who joined us this evening. And with that, we'll see you soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.